The timeline of today's reporting is really interesting, not just because President Trump was asked last week if Pam Bondi notified him that he was in the files, and he denied it on July 15th, but also because the reporting today says that Bondi and Blanche gave the Wall Street Journal a statement about that meeting last Friday. That means that Bondi and Blanche understood that reporting was forthcoming from the Wall Street Journal about that May meeting when Todd Blanche took to X and said he was going to invite Ghislaine Maxwell to have a private conversation with him. If anything, this shows that they knew what was coming and were trying to deflect from it by not only filing those motions to unseal grand jury testimony, but then also devising a plan. Ooh, maybe if we meet with Ghislaine Maxwell, she'll tell us something, but something that doesn't implicate Donald Trump the way the files in our own possession could, or at least talk about him. Now, I want to be really clear, Alicia, with you and our viewers, just because somebody is mentioned in the files is not an indication of any wrongdoing by them, much less something on which you could predicate a criminal investigation. I think it's really important to say that. But of course, like in many cases, the cover-up appears to be worse than a non-existent crime, right? Donald Trump is clearly freaking out about this, and quite reasonably, that's leading people to ask, why? If what's in there about you isn't all that incriminating, why are you so eager to deflect as many ways as you can from our learning about what it says about you?
Well, Congress, I just, look, again, the man has been acting like he was told his name was in the Epstein files. By the man, I mean the president. And now we know that he has been acting like he was told his name was in the Epstein files. He tried to deflect, and it's just not working. Congressman Dent, the House Oversight Committee is a very different committee than many of the other committees in Congress. This is like Congress's watchdog, for lack of a better term. Can you just explain to folks what a subpoena from the House Oversight Committee means and can do? Because there's two subpoenas. Because I was getting confused when I was reading it earlier, okay? There's two subpoenas. One for Ghislaine Maxwell. And it's my understanding that investigators from the House Oversight Committee could go and conduct that business and plan to do that in the coming weeks in Florida, in Tallahassee, where Ghislaine Maxwell is. And now this vote on the subpoena of the files from the Department of Justice.
Well, yeah, I served on that committee for a few years, and a couple of things. I've been involved with the issuance of subpoenas. But in the case of the interview with Ghislaine Maxwell, it's pretty clear that it seems that likely the professional lawyers on the committee staff would go to the prison and depose her, interview her there. It's not clear how many members would actually be there, if any. Maybe the chairman and the ranking member. And the other, I guess, is a broader subpoena requesting that these documents be released from the broader committee, separate from Ghislaine Maxwell. But we'll see how that all plays out. But I suspect everybody will comply with these subpoenas. I mean, I would if I were the administration.
Lisa, the plot thickens. And, you know, we're reaching the dog days of summer, and you just never know. Every day there's another narrative coming out. Every day you find yourself sitting there looking at your phone like, not again, what more? And you know, it's just how this is. You know, you have this sense that, you know, the beat goes on, but the plot thickens. And that's the problem that Trump has. And I think very much to the question that's on the table, like, OK, if there's a there, why not just get it out in front? It's summer. Get it out now when people are at beaches and all this other stuff. But it's the makeup of the man himself that makes that much more difficult. So where I want to go next is, what's the end game as you see it from your reporting? Where do these pieces come together, and how do they come together for this administration? You have, for example, the Wall Street Journal reporting on what Kash Patel knows, noting the director, Kash Patel, has privately told other government officials that Trump's name appeared in the files, according to people close to the administration. So you have someone who was in the mix pushing, talking about, we're going to expose all of this. When we get in power, we're going to take it all out, right? now admitting and telling folks that the president's name is there, yet and still we have this slow roll to put this information on the street.
Well, this is sort of explaining, Michael, what the disagreement between Kash Patel and his deputy Dan Bongino and Attorney General Bondi might have been about. It may very well be that folks at the FBI said to themselves and said to Attorney General Bondi, perhaps to others at the White House, look, his name is in these files, but not in a way that criminally implicates him. Still, it's there. You need to be aware of it. And we would still argue for the disclosure because, A, we campaigned on it, we promised it, and the public has a right to know. Even if it might be a little bit embarrassing to the president, it's certainly not something that's incriminating to him. And that may have been totally unacceptable to the White House and to President Trump himself. So I think we're getting a little bit of insight into what that cleavage might have been. But to your point about the dog days of summer, I want to go back to that because August, as you well know, is typically quiet time in Washington, D.C. It's the congressional recess where staff takes a moment to breathe, members go back to their districts, and yet it's not going to be quiet at all because August 5th is the last due date for submissions with respect to the motions to unseal the grand jury proceedings. That's the deadline for the Epstein estate, Maxwell's lawyers, and any victim who wants to be heard to submit their perspective on whether the grand jury testimony should be unsealed. And then, of course, you have this subpoena to Ghislaine Maxwell to give a deposition, which, according to the subpoena's press release today, is scheduled for August 11th at Federal Correctional Institution, Tallahassee. And so I think we will be dealing with this storyline as it continues to mount all throughout the month of August. If Mike Johnson expected that this would somehow be diffused over the recess, I think he is hopeful and misguided, and that's an understatement.